Hello, welcome to Sound and Fury Book Reviews. As usual, I am Tina. Today I'm doing a book review of The Redemption of Morgan Bright by Chris Panettiere. This is a horror book that came out April 23rd from Angry Robot. I received this book from Angry Robot in exchange for a fair review. I am part of the book tour for this novel, of which I was so happy to be, as I love Chris Panettiere's work. His two before this were very different. The Phlebotomist is this sci-fi vampire novel where good blood is in short supply, and Stringers, which is a comedy about two dudes abducted into space. So he proves that you don't need to stay in your lane when it comes to being a writer. You know, branch out. Do it. Because this book is absolutely fantastic. It's a thriller meets horror meets social commentary that uses a mixed media approach and takes the unreliable narrative trope and ramps it up to 11. I've said this before, but I know it's a great novel when I tell my husband about it, and I definitely told him about this one. In fact, I went on and on and on about it, and we were stuck in a car, so he couldn't leave, and too bad for him. So what is this book about? Hadley Keene died on the road from Hollyhock Asylum. The reasons are unknown. Her sister Morgan blames herself. A year later, with the case still unsolved, Morgan creates a false identity, that of a troubled housewife named Charlotte Turner, and checks herself in. Morgan quickly discovers that Hollyhock is not right. She is shaken by the hospital's peculiar routines and is soon beset by strange episodes. All the while, the persona of Charlotte takes on a life of its own, becoming stronger with each passing day. As her identity begins to unravel, Morgan retraces Hadley's footsteps, only to discover the dark secrets of Hollyhock and how deeply they are buried. Super cool. This book is fun because it uses a mix of police interviews, text exchanges, and first-person point of view to tell the story. This is a great structure because it makes the story fly by, yet also keeps you grounded, as without the interspersed moments in the present, the main story could get very lofty and almost too confusing. The novel deals with a common trope in psychological horror thriller that often gets too weird for its own good, but it's created and functions here in a way that not only allows for an unreliable narrator and the main plot to coexist in a way that makes sense, but reinforces the message behind the story in a way that feels organic. It's expertly done, to be completely honest. And what a message it has. This book is about bodily autonomy. It's about the rollback of women's rights in the United States, especially regarding Roe v. Wade, and it's also about how not too long ago women could be put in an asylum and essentially tortured just for not conforming to society or their husband's standards. This is true. Look it up. It's also a story about betrayals, mistakes, trauma, sibling rivalry, and drug addiction. There is a lot here, yet none of it competes. It all complements. It all works together. It's extremely compelling. I couldn't put it down. The mystery behind what is going on at the asylum is constantly lurking in the background, even when the characters are focused on something else momentarily. And the author does a fantastic job of making you understand why everyone seems complacent or complicit. It's engrossing, and at times it is absolutely harrowing. The novel carries a gothic atmosphere with the mix of 1950s and 1870s elements woven into what is essentially a contemporary novel. The sense of feeling almost back in time adds to the narrator's dilemma and contributes to the oozing anxiety and eeriness behind the novel as well. While there are moments of horror, most of the novel is actually quite tame in that it's more insidious than outright menacing. It really does start to ramp up near the end, though. As such, this isn't a woman locked in a mental institution and constantly abused story, but something else entirely. The writing is absolutely lovely, a compelling mix of descriptive and lyrical, with emotion just gushing from the page. He's adept at bringing us into the story in a mimetic way, where we are just as invested in Morgan as we are Charlotte, given how confused the two become, and how confused Morgan is about Charlotte, and vice versa. The mystery's resolution was wild and unexpected. In truth, this novel twists and turns in ways that you really don't expect. The novel is claustrophobic, confounding, creepy, and confining. It's also an allegory for how society still controls women, and the fact that a man wrote this is really impressive. While there are great women characters created by men, often when men might write about women's inner lives so deeply, they sometimes miss some of the nuances of being a woman, even if their heart's in the right place. But this novel absolutely nails it. I kept forgetting this book was written by a dude, despite having a signed copy of said dude's other book. Oh yeah, look at that. Ha 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 ha. I found it a mark of allyship, and it's always heartening to know men care so much about women's autonomy. Sometimes it's easy to forget that, especially with some of the nonsense and vitriol you see online. You can also read this novel entirely at face value. The themes are obvious when you think about it, but subtle if you're there just for the ride. In truth, as I was reading it, I wasn't really aware of the themes. I had to kind of sit and think about it afterward, and then I read the author's afterward or acknowledgments, and I was like, okay, that was there. So that's the thing. You can read this book and just enjoy it as a horror thriller. But if you're looking for something that is trying to say something, this book is saying a lot. If you couldn't tell, I thought this novel was an absolute 10 out of 10. There was nothing I would change about it. It's intelligent, exciting, horrific, pulse-pounding, and sad. I wish I could read it again completely anew to just experience it one more time. Maybe in like 5 years I'll forget it and then I'll read it again. Thank you again to Angry Robot for the ARC copy. Actually, it's not really an ARC copy. It's kind of a new copy. And I'm like, oh, I love it. So I'm very, very excited. And this one's definitely going on my, my favorites shelf over here. So yeah, thanks again.